Hey everybody, it's Maiden. Good morning. Okay, so I'm here today with We the People, the United States Constitution, and other significant documents. Now this book, not very big reading, okay, so everybody can maybe get this book and pass it out and go over it and read it together because it's super significant for your information and for your well-being if you're an American citizen in the United States or abroad, even if you're not living in the United States. Okay, so this is by Fall River Press, 122 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10011. This particular print is the 8th copy. So, I mean, they went ahead and started printing this a long time ago. This particular copy is 2009 printing, but it is the 8th printing. So, yeah. Okay, so I want to, let me give you the IB number. It's ISBN number 978-1 4351-1595-8, printed and bound in the United States of America. Okay, this book is, the documents in it are the United States Constitution, the amendments to the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Okay, now I wanted to read the introduction of this book because it really is extremely clear that we have a little bit of a misunderstanding how we are with our Republican Party and our Democratic Party in pertaining to the original founding documents, the spirit of America. What was all of this about? Okay, so our 2020 current market, current condition, current issues is that the Democratic Party, quote unquote, and the Republican Party, quote unquote, are separate, and they're now looking at each other almost like enemies. Okay. Today, that paradigm was not what our founding fathers ever wanted to happen. Now you can turn that scope onto other things and say, well, our founding fathers never wanted an impeachment without evidence or witnesses, but we're doing that, so we can do this and that and this and that and all these things that really are not what our founding fathers evidentiary wanted. But it's important to understand a few key things. Number one, we the people, the concept of we the people being all that is derived out of our country, everything out of our country, power, influence, finance, labor, talent, all of our assets as a country, except for the land, and even the top part of the land, all the improvements, this is all part and parcel to, contiguous to this we the people thing. So the we the people is a gigantic portfolio of assets, wealth, immeasurable wealth, in perpetuity, which means from the founding fathers, even before the founding fathers, because it attaches to the bloodlines. Okay, so the bloodlines go back ancient of days. Our country goes back 300 years officially or so, right in there. But there's evidence that this country was even a country before it officially became a country in 1776. So we want to do our work as ambassadors, as stewards, as sovereigns, to look, not overlook or bypass with disrespect, but to look past the obstacles and understand with respect who do these parties, obstacles, who are the parties of these obstacles? Because we the people is the majority party. Not the Republican Party, not the Democratic Party, but we the people are the actual principal securities, chief principal security assets of America, the largest principal chief principal security asset of America is we, the people, the living human beings that are the citizens, residents, sovereigns, natives of America. Okay. So what we want to do in this moment of time that I have with you is to reiterate a very key thing here. And it's not super complicated. I promise it won't take really very long. Okay, let me read this to you. America won its freedoms through revolution. Okay, I want to stop there. That's the first sentence. America won its freedoms through revolution. Revolution. You can see the word right there. Okay, now if you do the definition of revolution, it is two concepts put together like one. What are those two concepts? Rebellion, that's the first part of it, and evolution. So you have a rebellion evolution that is taking the force of the evolution isn't organic. It isn't organic. It isn't passive and organic and peaceful like a normal flower would bloom normally in the process of a peaceful, gracious, on God's timing bloom. It's moving quickly to evolve through another power, which is a causation, and that is rebellion. Okay. When you have a rebellion, evolution, you have a revolution. That's what that is. And what is everybody saying at that point? They're saying we're no longer voting. We're no longer going to go through a democratic a pathway or a peaceful a peaceful pathway. We're going to go ahead and take this into our own hands and evolve through a rebellion and break everything in the process to build something new. Okay, that's counterproductive. Okay, it made our country free because there was nothing on the country in the country at the time. We were a brand new country. We had a lot of raw land to win and a lot of Native American cultures to, this is the people that were destroyed and the remnants of God, praise God, are still here with us. But I'm just saying that what was going down, what was being hurt, what was being torn down at the time in North America was basically uncharted seas, uncharted lands, and the native tribal nations living here. This was what was all being fought against. Now, when you have them here first, and then you bring in the slavery, then you've got two sets of people, cultures, that are getting completely violated and dominated and controlled and killed and persecuted because of a new agenda coming in and a rich, powerful military, a rich, multiple rich crowns, monarchies. You've got multiple rich militaries, multiple rich monarchies, multiple rich investors and interests. And these are the parties that brought over the slavery that also fought against each other to come out as specific people in survivorship to all that was lost. Okay, so you come into the year 1776 and 1776 and 1883, and you go, okay, there's 8 years in there where we're now putting this into words, our freedom, where we're now printing the words into an actual document, which is called the newspaper, and parchments and different official document, printing. When you take a word and then you take it to print, not a digitization print. You take it to an actual print where you're printing it out, okay? This is significant. It is significant. And going from the print to the newspaper to hand it to you on a silver platter, and that is now getting phased out, is another evidentiary piece, big, gigantic piece of America's freedom getting threatened. Power of the press, power of the printed press, and to the freedom of speech, because the press, power of the press, is separate from power of the print. Your freedom to speak freely. Okay. Now, if we let America, we the people, are allowing our printed words to go away out of a newspaper, and we don't fight that, it is more evidence to those at the very top who are embezzling everything so quickly. That is intrinsic, because that is an intrinsic, inalienable right in our Constitution, freedom of the press. And our newspapers are floundering, and our printing presses are floundering. Where are they? Yeah, that's negative. That's bogus. All of our phone lines have been pulled out. All our landlines have been pulled out. All of our printing presses are going down. All of our newspapers are disappearing. All of the original evidentiary pathways that America started with are getting taken because we, the people, will not take their position. So what God has done is he said, you study, little maiden, that's me. And he goes, and then I want you to claim everything that nobody can see, because they're not studying and they're not claiming what is truly theirs, only because they're running around in a rat race, 9 to 5, this whole paradigm of debt, poverty, slavery, contracts, all of the debt paperwork, all of the pressure that is being put on the people, God has shown me is a diversion, a distraction, and what is needing is one person, just one person can do this. And I've already done it as of 2012, 12 of 12. So I want to go back to we the people is the chief principal security of all of America's assets. Why? Because all of the assets are derived, in other words, taken out of me, taken out of you, to go, and that energy going forward to generate commerce, to generate all kinds of commerce, okay, mostly commerce, okay? So our founding fathers were under duress, mostly, and in tyrannical, tyrant government of England, okay? So here it says that America won its freedoms through revolution, but that was not enough to ensure them for posterity, okay? So you can accomplish things through brute force, through violence, okay? Or you can accomplish things through respect, all right? If you show yourself approved and you really have done your homework and you have everybody's interest in consideration of the situation, then yes, you can change things outside of revolution. You can change things in a more gracious spirit of evolution, because evolution has a pace that is different than revolution. Okay, and the pace of evolution is a guaranteed result, where revolution isn't necessarily a favorable result. We did get a favorable result with America, but we have more to lose now. And it's so much more important to be smarter, work smarter, cover things better, going a little bit slower, than faster and harder and not having one single guarantee. Because when you go slower, you cover yourself and you bring yourself under the subjection of God's presence, then he's going to give you a sure guaranteed foundation and a sure guaranteed result. And it might not win the popularity contest, but it will hold water and prove itself to be very, very strong, what God shows us, okay? So let me read this to you guys, all right? So my simple point on revolution is revolution versus evolution. Can we do it with evolution instead of revolution? Yes, we can. which is a different pace of graciousness and respect. Okay, rather than destruction and going in and start declaring war like the Revolutionary War. Okay, so, but that was not enough to ensure from them for posterity. Our founding fathers recognized the importance of articulating those freedoms in words. Okay, this is my point. That could be put in print. This is my other point. To guide. So you can study. I mean, if you don't have a newspaper anymore, you can't sit and look at it and go, okay, we have this evidence. Let's put it here. It's in the printed word, endorsed by this newspaper. Okay? And so that's all going away. And I, the Maiden, Misha G. Valdez, do not consent about that. I hold you into an encroachment of tort claims of encroachment and interference of the freedom of the press to bring all of the newspapers back in small to all the large ones and have them be part of this new Maiden's Trust of freedom. So important to show ourselves strong with what our Constitution is saying. You have these rights, do them, and they're guaranteed e pluribus unum, in God we trust. So all of these inalienable rights in our Constitution are entrusted and guaranteed financially by e pluribus unum's portfolio of commerce, and that's never, it stands alone. Okay, all right. So here it says the importance of articulating those freedoms in words and could be put in print to guide the policies of the fledgling nation and to speak to generations of Americans to come. The United States Constitution and other American documents collects 5 essential documents that form the foundation of our democracy and express the spirit of America. All were drafted in the 8-year span between 1775 and 1783, which, by the way, guys, in 1782 is e pluribus unum, the Great Seal on our commerce. In God we trust. So in the foundation of America, in these documents, is e pluribus unum. It is one of the key documents about the Great Seal connecting God to our money and guaranteeing our money through the trust of God. Okay, they picked the most highest jurisdiction, highest identity, highest everything to guarantee our finance in. All therein. Okay. So then it goes on to say that when America's leaders sought to forge a government that would serve the needs of the new nation and protect, keyword, its democratic principles, Principles, not PALS. PLES is different identification of concepts and other concepts, theories, different other bodies of knowledge. But the Democratic wasn't a Democratic Party. It was a collection of principles. Okay, for the Republic's duration, to protect against the democratic principles, the mind almost like of democracy, not a Democratic Party in these people, but the mind of a democracy, okay? And the duration, the length of our unity, which is the republic. So neither one of these Democrat or Republic issues were ever identified by our founding fathers as two separate parties. When they would register for the United States and they would try to go in there and identify, have the president candidate or whoever was in the office of the president tell them, what party are you? You can see, research it, at the beginning of our country, our first presidents were combining both. You would see it often that it was the Democratic Republican Party because they understood you can't have a democracy without unity. It's going to go into pirating. It's going to go into Pirates of the Caribbean, really. That whole paradigm of pirates and all that we want to stay right with this excellence and what is the word? This majesty that is intrinsic inside of all of us. It's all over the world. But what our founding fathers did was amazing, because they were fleeing from slavery, the ancient slavery. They were fleeing from the ancient poverty. They were fleeing from this whole paradigm of treacherous government. And they were searching for a land that they could be free and they could figure it out. Okay, so they weren't coming in here acting like they knew everything. They were figuring it out as they went, because it is a very real understanding that most people know more about what they don't want than what they do want. So you got to design an infrastructure document like a constitution for your country in a way where this constitution will expand and grow as the people expand and grow in their minds, mostly about their true identities. Now, you're going to start out, usually if you get a new job, you're going to start out at the bottom as a grunt, or you're going to start out at the bottom in service, and you're going to start out the bottom with, they're going to hand you a dish rag and say, go do the dishes or go chip paint off the side of this ship, or I don't know what. But they're going to give you a job where you're going to start at the very bottom, and you're going to have to show yourself strong to give as a servant with the right heart so that you can get out of there, so you can be given some responsibilities that you can be shareholder to. And here down in service, that is a gigantic place to be a shareholder to, but it's very rare that people are guided well into knowing that, so they can build that service portfolio that they have shown themselves strong in service. But right up until this point, we have got to trust God to have good books about all the ministry, all the service, all the free volunteer stuff that we've done with our lives as Christians, and serving that you've done voluntarily because you knew that needed to be done, and there was just no way to sit around and wait for this to get financed. You're just going to go and you're going to do this the best you can with no money, because that's basically how our the architecture of the finance is constructed invisibly, and it puts our money flows either back to the people, or that puts our money flows away from the people. And the way that this was constructed was that it was built away from the people, to flow away from the people and into monarchy across the water and into slavery across the water. I mean, these were slave books. So, I mean, but what our founding fathers did do is this. They said in the Constitution that it is derived from the people, for the people, and by the people. Well, the revelation of that leads directly to e pluribus unum. Okay, and I can go into another class of that, but basically what this is about is to just look back right now on this one point, that we didn't have two parties. They were taking and extrapolating the democratic principles. They were taking and extrapolating the Republican 13 colonies that were coming together in unity. But what they were doing also was they were building and shaping and forming and investing and fighting and doing a revolution and doing the wars and having all the slavery and all of this debacle stuff that they didn't ever really focus on. Peacetime being the time to redesign perpetuity to go directly to the people. Okay. So the birth of the American nation began with the Declaration of Independence adopted by the Continental Congress. Okay, so we don't even talk about the Continental Congress. We talk about what? We don't even go there. Okay, we have a Congress, but they're landlocked, and they don't even have jurisdiction over all the other states anymore. They are federal, which is no more covenant of that. Our founding fathers would be rolling over in their grave if they would know that federal, the word federal, isn't federal. What they remember federal being is a covenant. Anytime that you see in America the federal government, it's a covenant, a promise, a guarantee, a bedrock, you're not getting past this spirit that this is where you're going to hit the wall right here is on our federal, because we don't let anybody in. We only let in our own. We don't let anybody else in. Well, our founding fathers did that. They put down their lives. They bled. They died. They shed, they laid down their lives for this federal issue of covenant. And so when they brought this freedom in, they brought in this Constitution, they did it under an ambiance or spirit of governance to govern well and to not be tyrants and to promote freedom through the Liberty Bell. But liberty is permission. When you're getting permission to be free, you're not free yet. Liberty is the portal to go through to be free. So when you hear the bell ringing, it's the iron versus iron. It's the anvil. It's the iron of the issue. When you're hearing the bell ring, it's the iron, it's the hardness, it's the hard thing, it's the battle, it's the thing that's been forged and shown itself strong, and let's ring that bell of freedom. Okay, but as you can see, there's a crack down the middle of this bell. Well, that doesn't mean anything, guys, other than the fact you've got evidence this has really gone through some major, major testing. But you know what? That bell still rings. So this test, this evidence, this crack right here is success, because it's evidence that America is standing strong still for freedom. So when you ring a bell, it's the sound that goes out that is free to resonate freely out. Resonate freely inside of me when I hear a bell ringing. Even in heaven, they say wings of angels are given to, angels get their wings. So this freedom identity and all the bloodshed, all the wars, all of the different, you're not going any further. We're going to stop you. We're going to fight you. We're going to hit you. We're going to, all of the different dimensions to keep out our lives out of our own trust, out of our own inheritance, out of our own identities of excellence, of majesty, of freedom. Okay, so am I saying that I want to go into a space of majesty and have all of America be under a space of majesty and every citizen be majesty? Well, intrinsically, that is the word of God. 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10, we are all holy, royal, monarchy of heaven, created by God individually as a one of a kind. Every single one of us is one of a kind. Evidentiary by your fingerprints, your eye prints, your DNA. You are a majesty with God. You are a holy, royal monarchy, priest, priestess, very beautiful creation before God, eternal being before God. Well, if you stand for that on the earth, you're going to inherit all of that. But right now, we're inheriting. We're going to inherit here on the earth right now, either the revelation of 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10, in God we trust, or we're going to inherit more of this fighting and slavery and keep you down and don't let you get up and don't let you see all that is yours, all that you are, and everything, all therein, if you were supported in your life from your birth in America to your death, God forbid, whenever that is. I'm just saying that America is the country that is lined itself up, amazingly so, with God correctly, with our Constitution completely bridged to the Bible, okay, and how we've gotten church and state going, all of that stuff, it's appropriate in specific atmospheres, but in completely inappropriate foundationally, because we have so much evidence to prove that God was very much involved in all aspects of America's founding as we have evolved here. Okay. So England is the country that spawned the leaving and coming here. Okay, it was England. It was the tyrant monarch system. It was just all kinds of stuff. Now, if you look at our founding fathers, these are the vatos, or these are the leaders, rather. In Spanish, they call them vatos, but, citizens of Spain, or Mexico, but that's slang term. Forgive me. I'm trying to be respectful. Okay, so, but basically, our founding fathers, most of them came from England. And either they were one of two things. They were here as a double spy, working both sides to the middle, saying they wanted freedom, but building structures of poverty. That is evidentiary by the way that the architecture is. So when you go into an old house and you do the review as an estates forensic analyst or auditor, you want to study the architecture of the building to see the era that it was built, or the architect themselves to see the frame of mind they were in, because most of the time you will see that this building is serving that particular intrinsic issue of the person, the builder, or the architecture was built for a specific purpose. Okay? So in our Congress, at the very beginning of these 8 documents at this time, 1776, when they started putting all of this into writing, into print, to give to the people, this was the time that they were putting all of the pieces together, and there was a lot of thought involved. So this is well thought out, incredibly so, and anointed and blessed. God bless America. It sounds so easy to say, but in reality, God has blessed big time for perpetuity ever America. Okay. All right. So when Congress passed the resolution for independence by the vote of 12-1 on July 2nd, the declaration was submitted for discussion. After 2 days of debate over its wording, keyword, the declaration was approved by July 4th and sent to the printer, keyword, to be turned into broadsides and could be reproduced in newspapers, okay, and read to the public. It's so important that newspapers never, ever, 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 ever go away or lose value or are looked at in a way that is like every other print, okay? Because newspapers were the freedom documents to get a hold of easily by anyone, to look at, to see what is the information for everybody. This is full disclosure. You can't get full disclosure with the tech sector, everybody having a cell phone. You can get full disclosure with one document, the printed word being the primary word, and the digitization word is never ever reliable to give you the original word of this, and the printed word does do that. Okay. Alrighty. So 15 days later, the Congress ordered an engrossed handwritten copy of the Declaration to be signed by the members of the Congress. Okay, so the engrossed copy is the handwritten copy, which is still today. If I write this in handwritten, this is the highest version of this. All my handwriting, I do that. All of my handwriting, I do in handwriting, because it is the engrossed. It is the engrossed study. It is intrinsic. There is so much going into these plans, these writings. All of my writings, most of my writings are in hand writings. And when you take it away from the handwriting and you go into print, and you go, once you get to print, you have, there's just so much going on with that. When you have it in your engrossed version and you can see the original plan, then you've got multiple dimensions involved here. That was this. 15 days later, the Congress ordered an engrossed handwritten copy of the Declaration to be signed. Everyone had to sign by all members of the Congress. The majority of those who signed did so on August 2nd, but through some names were not added until October of that year. Well, intrinsically, the original ones that signed on August 2nd are party to all of the investment, where in October of that year, where the other names were added, that isn't the same investment as when you get started. Now, this is England's argument about America. We were the ones that were there at the beginning. But England did not represent a friend. Okay? It did not represent a friend. All right. The Declaration of Independence is the most revolutionary of all the documents in Americans' heritage. Did you hear me? We're fighting for the Constitution, but the actual Declaration of Independence is the most revolutionary. Revolutionary, remember? Rebellion plus evolution. So we have a document called the Declaration of Independence, and it was a document that people died to have enforced and endorsed and become one of the 8 major documents of the founding of America. So that shows you the spirit of America is not afraid to fight you. The spirit of America is not afraid to go into rebellion and literally fight outside foreign forces or even internal foreign forces to make sure we are free. And if you're going to stop us from being free, all races in America equal, all men created equal. Black, white, yellow, green, blue, every color, race, this is America, freedom, okay? All right, so let's go into this. So the Declaration of Independence is the most revolutionary of all the documents in American heritage in succinct but elegant. Listen to the spirit. Succinct but elegant prose. It promotes the idea of a democratic government that derives its powers from the consent of the governed. Okay? And that is obligated to defend the inalienable rights of the governed to life, okay, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, liberty is what has expanded, because when you get permission to be free, you're not really free. You're at liberty, okay? And that is still freedom. People can say, well, then liberty isn't freedom. What about the Statue of Liberty? What about all of this liberty issue? Liberty is the portal of freedom. Liberty is walking through a threshold to identify that before you walked into liberty, you were not free. And now that you're in liberty, which is the redemption period, which is the redemption area, liberty is going to send you from there into freedom. And you need to be able to pass from complete world freedom, where you can go and do anything you want in the world, that you're responsible for yourself, obviously. But what America is doing in sovereignty, in the mind of God, and I believe in our founding fathers, was to get all of our citizenship extremely aware in our minds, know these 8 documents, know which ones are important, know which ones are in order, which ones have faults, defects, where are you going to be? When you see the defect in the Liberty Bell, are you going to stand for, does this Liberty Bell even work, or is it fractured? Is it, no, see the evidence right there? It's broken. See, it doesn't work. Are you going to stand there where, no, it doesn't work, and criticize? Or are you going to stand next to the bell and say, no, actually, Your Honor, that's evidence of testing. That's the testimony even of our Liberty Bell, telling you it's been tested, tried and true, and still rings today, that bell of freedom. Okay, so we as Americans, we the people, have to decide, are you going to stand on the side of freedom that's going to criticize, or are you going to stand in your sovereignty and say, Your Honor, I do understand where this is. Whatever space we're in, this is where we are. And it usually comes down to explaining to our courts and our highest justices, this is broken, Your Honor, because of this. In full disclosure, there is no one righteous, no, not one, and there is no one guilty, no, not one. This has been a group effort to get all of us free. And you're going to see a lot of faults, a lot of falling down, getting back up, not quitting, continuing to abide with as much respect as possible without being disrespectful. But this is important to understand. Respect. That's what this is all about, is respect. And you can criticize freely. You can criticize, but understand what God is wanting from anybody who heavily criticizes, that they have used as much time that you have built to create your argument and criticisms. You've spent equally as much time on solutions. So you were not staying in the mire of your study that gets us everywhere but nowhere on understanding, all right, now you just went into all of our problems. Now what is your solution? Okay? And Jesus Christ, Almighty God, showed up for 33 years to point out the problems, but also gave his life for the solution, eternal life. Okay? So we have great follow-up here in America with our founding fathers identifying, okay, we couldn't give them, we want to give them freedom, right? What does the Bible say? Jesus Christ says, I will make you free and free indeed. So the founding fathers got behind that. The founding fathers got behind understanding that it is Christ who is leading, and we are to follow behind him, cart before the horse, right? No, we want to be in order with God. We want to stay where God is. We want to be right at his elbow or right behind him or right with him, right? We don't want to be ahead of him. We want to be with him. And where he is extremely powerful, guys. And he is definitely surpasses any quantum that you can possibly think of. So he's right here, our founding fathers. This is the chronological thing. So the Declaration, it's saying, is the most primary issue document first, is the most revolutionary of all documents, right? In succinct but elegant prose, it promotes the idea of the democratic government that derives its powers from the consent of the governed, which is us, we the people, okay? And that is obligated to defend the inalienable rights inside of you, inside of me. Our justices, our government is designed by God even to protect all inalienable rights inside of the human being in this country. I mean, can you get a hold of this promise? You go to other countries, they don't care if you are, they don't really even care, okay? People can criticize America and say the same thing, but that's not true here, okay? That is not true here. And I've gone through a lot in America, being raised in this system. I have a lot of scars in my life, but you know what? Jesus Christ is the victor, and he has made America the victor. And all therein, in your faith, is what takes you and brings you into the fullness of this. Okay, so it says that these are the inalienable rights of the governed to have life, all of it, everything about the life is yours. Liberty, which is the freedom concept and in the portal of freedom and the support of freedom. And the pursuit of happiness, which is exactly what Jesus Christ is all about, is this joy. He wants to have you have a life, a full life, from the beginning of your life to the end of your life, everything in between, with a spirit of joy, a hope, a firm foundation of, yes, there's this Bible here, and yes, that is about God, but we also have a whole world here nation that is about pursuing this respectful freedom, pathways to prosperity, to happiness, to a full life, guys. Okay, so let me finish. The Declaration specifically criticizes England's then reigning monarch, King George III, a tyrant whose politics were inimical to the colony's interests. Hence, the poignancy of the boldly inscribed document all Americans are familiar with in signing their names to it. Each of the signatories was aware that he was committing an act of treason punishable by death. Okay, now, the risk that these founding fathers had to sit down and look at each other in the eyes and say to each other at the time, freedom is in the Word of God. You can read it right here. And they were all men that knew the Word of God, obviously. So they're saying, okay, the treasonous monarch of England, King George III, isn't promoting freedom. And it looks like, since the Ancient of Days, it doesn't look like anytime soon that's going to happen. With all of the churches in England, all of the churches around Europe, and all throughout, everywhere else besides America, all of the churches and all of the churches that have been Ancient of Days, no one church has produced an actual manifested governed freedom backed by the Word of God before America. Earlier in 1776, honey, what's wrong?
Bank book.
Bank book?
Yeah, did you see my little bank book on the bottom? Here?
Your checkbook?
No, the little...
Your bank bag.
Yeah.
Yes, I have it. Okay. Earlier in 1776, the cause for independence had been called to the attention of the public through Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense Paine. Okay, that's in this book. In Common Sense Paine, a progressive British intellectual, okay, all of our founding fathers mostly were from London, England, guys. Okay, a British intellectual was nearly arrived to the colonies in November of 1774, prior to 1776. Less than a half a year later, his adopted country, keyword, adopted country, was in the midst of a revolution against his mother country. So it's like Prince Harry, he's not in a revolution to his country. It's just he's running away. He doesn't want to be, he doesn't even know probably how to even approach some of the stuff that's so entrenched in old tradition that's not good tradition. Some tradition is not worthy to be honored, okay? So less than half a year later, his adopted country was in the midst of which is America, it was in the midst of a revolution against his mother country, which was England. Siding with the revolutionaries, Paine began writing the monograph under the title Plain Truth late in 1775. It was published anonymously as Common Sense on January 10, 1776. Considered an incendiary tract in its time, Common Sense advocates the argument that the best government evolves naturally from the society of the governed. The book advocates independence as the only solution to the hostilities between the American colonists and the British monarchy, and it proposes a representative government elected by the colonies and the adoption of the Continental Charter. Now, the word charter is a financial term. Written in a simple prose, accessible to the layman, written in simple prose accessible to laymen, Common Sense sold 500,000 copies, printed in its first year. Paine was so committed to America's independence that he donated his royalties from the book to the Continental Army, which we need to find where is that Continental Army, under the leadership of George Washington. So we can, if we don't find the Continental Army now, we need a Continental Army. We need a Continental Security Forces. And the reason why is because of these very issues of encroachment and gross and egregious, torturous interference of contract, of inalienable rights that is now found in administrative jurisdiction, but has been overlooked by our overseers, by our guardianship. Our best interests have been overlooked big time. So that's the other reason I'm running for president, so I can go in and research and find out where exactly are we with these documents, where are we with our founding fathers, aligning with this, and making sure that we aren't causing harm anywhere. And then we're going to go ahead and build those portfolios for every citizen of the United States based on their state, which is not just the state they live in, which is part of the state, but we're in quantum now. So quantum is past, present, future, time and space that we're in, and then the pace of your life, where you're moving. How fast is your life moving versus how fast is everything else moving, so that we can get that disparity fixed. Okay? So it says here that the Continental Army, so the military has been one of the biggest victims of the violations of the embezzlement of secondary perpetuity. Okay, I'm letting you know that. Even after signing the Declaration as they fought the War of Independence, the 13 American colonies existed more as independent and autonomous nations than as United States. So prior to, right, let me read it again. After signing the Declaration as they fought, so you're signing this document during war. This is a Declaration of Independence they were signing during war. Okay. Fought the War of Independence. The 13 American colonies existed more as independent, autonomous nations. That's why we have in the Southwest, west of the Mississippi, rather, all of that land to the West Coast was tribal nations. And to this day, we call it tribal nations. In in New Mexico, where God sent me when I was a new missionary, and I've been here ever since, one of the biggest things to get used to was that Santa Fe, the highest capital city, the oldest and St. Augustine and Santa Fe are running some, about the oldest capital city. But however, surrounding Santa Fe, capital city of New Mexico, is 19 tribal nations surrounding New Mexico, or Santa Fe. Therefore, this concept of having independent, autonomous nations back in the 1776 is still very much real, relevant, alive today. We still have, in America, autonomous, independent nations, okay? Mostly governed by our tribal ancestors, remnant, which are holy people unto God. Okay. All right, so then we have, where are we here? So, nations that then as the United States, each with its own government. Okay, so realizing the need for a more centralized keyword government to unify keyword, which is in the Bible, one of the biggest objectives of God is unity. Them in their common war against the British Crown, specifically, the colonies, through the Continental Congress, drafted the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union in 1776. Now, Maiden, Misha G. Valdez, presidential candidate 2020, has done her homework big time. So I have blown a lot of people out of the water with my research, with what I know and how to get directly to the point. And this one right here is a big one. So perpetual is a word in law. It's perpetuity law. Perpetual means never ending, always going, never ending, ever, ever, ever. Okay? So the Perpetual Union of 1777 is part of the 1776 through 1883, the 8 documents, one of which was the Pluribus Unum. This Perpetual Union is part of that, 1777. So in perpetuity union, this is it right here. Okay, now what have we dropped the ball on this? Well, it's invisible. So one of the things that America has become is very carnal. Why? Because she was able to get so rich so fast. She was able to buy anything she wanted. So we have like the flashiest stuff in America. We have the flashiest, most fancy stuff in America. And what it's done is it's made our children, all the way through our seniors, distracted with a fake and not the actual original intrinsic element. Okay, so our children being on the tech sector is now the new nanny of our country, and it isn't a good thing. And where our tech sector needs to really focus is on our education, to assist in education, to assist in infrastructure design, to assist the human race, because the intrinsic that they've stolen from the human race, all the data, the metadata, all of the detail of your quintessential identities and all of this big stuff, this is all derived from we the people. Everything, the common denominator, all goes back to we the people, not knowing that they're the chief principal security. We just won the Super Bowl. The Chiefs, what that is the chief principal security of economy out of Kansas City, which is the Federal Reserve. We, the people, are the Federal Reserve with the true covenant, not the building, the Federal Reserve. We, the people, are the infinite wealth dynasty people in America. And it's so much more dimensional than it has ever been overseas, anywhere overseas. Okay, so even after signing the Declaration as they fought the War of the Independence, the 13 American colonies existed more as an independent, autonomous nations than as the United States, each with its own government. Realizing the need for more centralized government to unify them in their common war against the British Crown, the colonies, through the Continental Congress, drafted the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union of 1777, which we need to get out of and get it out and dust it off and see what we can track from back to 1777 all the way to now on that particular document, and go in, focus on perpetuities, perpetual, and see what is on the federal assets list. This is probably only found in national security or with our Congress or somewhere in our portfolios. Where is that perpetual union file? And bring it out, pull it out. It's relevant. It's needed now. Why? Because right now, as we speak, across the water, all around the world, they're getting the revelation of monarchy. They're getting the revelation that monarchy has tremendous value, especially guaranteed and endorsed by God. 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10. Holy royal monarchy of heaven on the earth with a free will, that's each one of us, so that God is testing every single person, because Satan is the one who said they don't love you. They'll never love you. You offer them everything, they will never, ever find you. They'll be so distracted and they'll never know you and they'll never fall in love with you and they'll never love you. God said, fine, I'm going to give you, I'm going to put together a planet that's going to have a free will race, but they will be my people. Holy royal monarchy of heaven, kings and queens, priests and priestesses, all that. I'm going to put them on the earth, and I'm going to let you run this thing and see how you can run them around, but I'm going to give them a free will, and if they find me, they get everything. That's the deal. And this is what's happened. Maiden of Santa Fe, Misha G. Valdez, has this for America. If you will hear me, if you will only hear me. Thank you. Bye-bye.